The ayes to the right, 314. The noes to the left, 291. The ayes have it, and look!
In a historic and emotional vote, MPs in the UK have backed a bill that would legalise assisted dying for terminally ill adults. Bill passes Commons. The bill passed the House of Commons by a narrow margin. 314 MPs voted in favour. 291 voted against. A majority of just 23. The bill now heads to the House of Lords for further debate and possible changes.
We know that there are different views within the public, and we have to take on board the concerns of vulnerable groups, and that's why the safeguards are so important. But I would also say that there is no one more vulnerable than someone who is dying.
Because there is no doubt that if this bill is passed in its current form, people will lose their lives who do not need to, and they will be amongst the most vulnerable and marginalised in our society.
Why are the vast majority of palliative care doctors, geriatricians and groups representing people with disabilities, eating disorders and domestic violence all in opposition, not to this principle, but to this bill? And that includes people who support the principle of assisted dying, but not the specific bill. Can the honourable member explain their opposition?
I think we've kind of covered that point already, exactly. but these are not homogenous groups of...
We should listen. We should listen. And if the people who are going to make this work and work as well as we hope it will if it becomes legislation, say that they are not confident that they can make it happen, we should be very, very careful about demanding that they prioritise this. And that's what this legislation says.
I urge you to support this bill.
What the bill says. The proposal is called the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill. It would allow assisted dying under strict conditions. Here's what lays out. The person must be 18 or older and live in England or Wales. They must have been registered with a GP for at least 12 months. They must have a terminal illness and be expected to die within 6 months. They must have the mental capacity to make the decision. They must make 2 formal declarations, signed and witnessed. They must be assessed by 2 independent doctors, at least 7 days apart. If all conditions are met and the request is approved, there is a mandatory 14-day waiting period. A doctor would prepare the substance, but the patient must take it themselves. It would be a serious crime to pressure or force someone into making the request. The penalty? Up to 14 years in prison. Political and public reactions. The bill has sharply divided both politicians and the public. Prime Minister Keir Starmer voted in favor. Health Secretary Wes Streeting opposed it, though he said he would respect the result. Outside Parliament, large crowds gathered. Supporters were clothes that read "Campaign for Dignity in Dying." Opponents carried banners warning against what they called a national suicide service. Advocates say this bill would end the need for terminally ill people to travel abroad for an assisted death. Currently, assisted dying is legal in Switzerland, but only for those who can afford to go. Helping a loved one get there can also carry legal risks. The global context. If passed into law, the UK would join a growing list of countries that permit assisted dying. Assisted suicide is already legal in Canada, Belgium, Australia, and some US states. Euthanasia, where a doctor directly ends a patient's life, is legal under strict rules in the Netherlands and Canada. What happens next? The House of Lords will now examine the bill in the coming months. They may propose amendments. If they do, the bill must return to the Commons for approval before it can become law. This is one of the UK's most sensitive moral debates in decades. Now one step closer to a landmark change.